Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver, a little bit of a special noon show. It's the holidays. It's a lot of stuff going on, so want to do a little bit of an early show. So, look, I'm not, not getting y'all's Christmas time or holiday time or whatever you may be celebrating this weekend. But there's a lot going on in sports right now, ladies and gentlemen. We got COVID problems. We got slumping teams. We got teams that are starting to get a little hot. A lot of NFL playoff talk today. And joining me a little later in the show is going to be my man Barry Grant Jr. of the All Even podcast. He is back on the show today. There's not going to be any crazy surprises like there were last time he was here. That was a blast. But he's going to be on the show today to talk NBA, his Lakers, 3-game losing streak, as well as our Cowboys. What's it going to take for them to possibly win the NFC, maybe even get the number 1 seed, which is still a possibility, as well as Russell Wilson struggles. Russ is in a complete funk right now. I don't know what's going on, but Russ isn't Russ right now, and so there's lots to talk about. So let's just dive right into it. So Monday night, we watched the Vikings and the Bears. Okay, Minnesota won. Chicago looks like a complete train wreck. Matt Nagy's going to get fired. Bears fans were calling for that during the game. It's kind of crumbling down in Chicago. Not going to discuss that. It's not really worth y'all's time. I will discuss, however, the earlier Monday night to really Monday evening game that was rescheduled from Saturday evening because of the Browns' COVID issues. So, Nick Mullins started for the Cleveland Browns. I will say this about Nick Mullins, and I believe I said this on Monday's show, and I picked Cleveland to win. Nick Mullins is probably, I think we would all agree, the best third-string quarterback in the NFL. I wasn't even saying that just based off how he played on Monday night. I was just going off of what he did in San Francisco. Heck, what he did in college. He played at Brett Favre's school, after all, and broke a lot of Brett's records. So there's something to be said about that. And I thought Nick Mullins did a decent job. But I hear a lot of Browns fans, and look, it's Christmas, it's the holiday season, the season of giving, the season of kindness. I don't want to sound or come off as mean-spirited towards Brown fans or Cleveland fans in general, even though I absolutely can't stand them. They're one step below Philadelphia fans to me. But I hear a lot of on Twitter and Instagram, everybody saying, oh, if the Browns had a healthy roster, they would have won on Monday night against the Vegas Raiders. And I'm here to tell you, you look at the numbers, you look at recent history, they probably wouldn't have. And here's why. So Cleveland scored 14 points against that Vegas defense, which has been questionable at times. Yes, they got a Pro Bowler in Max Crosby, who, has an unbelievable story. I love Max Crosby. Outside of that, the Raiders got nobody defensively that you respect. And so you got Landry's out, you got offensive linemen are out, you got Baker's out, you got the backup, Case Keenum out. But I think what's really interesting, and this is what I've said about the Browns, they're in a quarterback dilemma. Because when you look at Nick Mullins, heck, just watching the game, just looking at numbers, didn't look like that big of a difference between Nick Mullins and Baker to me. Is Baker better? Yeah, he's better. But I've seen a lot of games where Baker's put up 14 or less in many of these big, somewhat season-turning, season-deciding games for Cleveland. Let's start with at the Minnesota Vikings. So Cleveland beat Minnesota. What was this in week 5? They beat them in week 5, 14-7 in Minnesota. Now, 14 in itself is not all that impressive, but you add to it, it's not the traditional 14 where you score 2 touchdowns. No, it was 1 touchdown. They got a 2-point conversion, and they kicked 2 field goals. The Browns defense won that game, and Baker's numbers in this one were anything but spectacular. Under 50% completion percentage, a $155 passing, a QBR of 15, a passer rating of 59. Now, I hear about the shoulder injury. This is pre-shoulder injury. Now let's look at when they played the Steelers. Big game. This is a big division game. At this point, Big Ben was struggling, man. And it was Odell's fault, right? They scored 10 points. Baker threw for 225 yards, had a QBR of 51, a passer rating of 86. Not that bad numbers, but Baker missed some big throws down the stretch. Against the New England Patriots, huge game for both teams at Foxborough. Not necessarily expecting the Browns to win the game. I'm not going to put that against Baker. But in this game before he got hurt, he was 11 for 21 for 73 yards, a touchdown, a pick, a QBR of 35, a passer rating of 56. Shall I continue? Against the at the time winless Detroit Lions at home against some guy named Boyle starting at quarterback for the Lions who didn't even throw for 100 yards. Baker Mayfield barely completed 50% of his passes, 176 passing yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, a QBR of 9, a passer rating of 53. Let's look at another big division game. This is a recurring theme here against the Ravens. They scored 10 points. Baker had a QBR of 39, a passer rating of 79, and barely completed 50% of his passes. And then when you look at Nick Mullins' numbers on Monday night against the Raiders, completed well over 50% of his passes. 147 yards, a touchdown, a QBR of 78, a passer rating of 89. And so when I watch that game, I'm like, I don't see a difference. Because when you see backups come in for starters all the time, you're like, okay, if you have a good backup, he can win you a game or two depending on how long your starter's out. But this is what concerns me for Green Bay's future if Aaron Rodgers leaves. Did you see Jordan Love when he came in for Aaron Rodgers? Grand Canyon gap between those two. Did you see, let me think of another example. Let's see. You could say, I don't know, the New York Giants even. Daniel Jones, I don't even think is a competent quarterback. But have you seen Mike Glennon? They could have used Daniel Jones these last few games, to say the least. And so when I'm watching that, I'm like, Nick Mullins is the third string. And I said this when Case Keenum won a game for them against the Denver Broncos on a Thursday night game a couple months ago. I said Case was decent, and I didn't see much of a difference between he and Baker. And Baker's supposedly the franchise guy that they're going to be paying big money soon should they make that decision. And this is why I've said for about a month now, he ain't that dude. He's not. Because he's had Jarvis Landry in some of these stinkers. He's had Odell Beckham Jr., who's all of a sudden balling in LA. He didn't play all that well on Tuesday night against Seattle. But for the most part, he's gotten adjusted to Matthew Stafford. He's gotten adjusted to this Sean McVay offense. And he's looked good. Got a couple comments here from Cowboys Cam Fan Podcast. Shout out to them. They do some great streams. He says, Baker's a bum. Mason Rudolph. Yeah, Mason Rudolph, Big Ben. That's a good example. We have our issues with Big Ben. He has led multiple comebacks this year for the Steelers. As a matter of fact, I actually think he's tied for the NFL lead in comeback wins. And Mason Rudolph comes in against the Detroit Lions, albeit in a horrible rainstorm. Yeah, it wasn't very good. And so this is my issue with the Browns. They've got the roster. Everybody's blaming Kevin Stefanski. Are you talking about the same guy that won Coach of the Year last year? Did Kevin Stefanski just forget how to coach? Is that what happened? He just forgot how to coach the game of football? Please. He's still got the running game. In majority of these games, the Browns, if they didn't rush for 100 yards, they rushed for about 90 plus. There's no excuses. You know a lot more about your starter than when your backup comes in and you see how he performs. I mean, listen, I've defended Lamar Jackson as much as anybody. You got to admit, his backup comes in, looks pretty good. I got to keep it real. Now, I still think the Ravens should pay Lamar. I mean, he's won an MVP after all. But this is a problem for the Browns. When your third string quarterback looks just as good, in some cases better, than your starter, that's a problem, and that's a quarterback you need to move on from. No questions asked. All right, away from Baker now to LeBron James. Iman Shumpert, my man Iman Shumpert, I love this guy. He was on a podcast recently. He's kind of taking a tour. He won the ABC show Dancing with the Stars. He's feeling himself. He was really good on that show, by the way. But Iman Shumpert, 2016 champion. He was a great defensive player. And he was on a show recently, a podcast, and he was asked, like, did Kevin Durant's move to the Golden State Warriors in 2016, did that, like, screw up the league or ruin the league? And Iman Shumpert said, quote, talking about LeBron James. No, LeBron ruined the league. He said, quote, he thought he was making it better. Me personally, I love the NBA for the loyalty that I thought was there. He basically knocked the fourth wall down. So basically, Iman is saying LeBron ruined the league with that decision to go to Miami in 2010. First of all, it shows you how impactful the decision was because we're still talking about it 11 and a half years later. It just shows you the significance of it. But I got to say, Iman, I vehemently disagree with you here. Because number one, what LeBron James did for NBA players is what majority, well, I wouldn't say majority, a good portion of Americans get to do. If they're working at a job, they see another one that's maybe paying more money, gives them a better opportunity to be successful, what do you think they're going to do? Well, they're going to leave. Because nobody shows a loyalty to a particular job. You got to be loyal to yourself and your family at some point, right? And loyal to your bank account. Now, for LeBron, this had nothing to do with his bank account. He was going to be fine regardless of wherever he went. But what LeBron was saying at the time was, I'm winning MVPs left and right, up and down. Heck, we're in some cases, we're winning 60 games with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Good defensive teams, but come on. Mo Williams was his only all-star teammate. Mo Williams. That's it. And I'm getting bounced by Orlando and Boston. And in the 1 year I did get to the finals, San Antonio swept us off the floor. It really wasn't even close. And so LeBron is saying, and this is what Kevin Durant said in 2016. Now, Kevin Durant's move is a little bit different as far as the chemistry aspect going to a 73-win team, whereas LeBron, D-Wade was already with Miami, of course, and Chris Bosh kind of formed it as a whole. KD just joined a great group. LeBron kind of formed his own. But what LeBron was doing is handing the power to the players. This notion that we hear sometimes that, oh, super teams, they just started with LeBron. No, player-created super teams started with LeBron and the Heatles. We've had super teams since the freaking 60s. I mean, Bill Russell won 11 rings in 13 tries. You look at some of those Lakers teams, although they didn't win a whole lot. Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain. I mean, those were some stacked ball clubs in the 80s. Early 80s. Look at those 76ers teams. Moses Malone, Dr. J. Lakers, Celtics. Iconic rivalry. The Bulls, I think it's safe to say the Bulls were a super team. People like to make, and listen, I think Jordan's the GOAT too, guys. But when people say that, oh, the Bulls weren't a super team, yes, they were. Phil Jackson's the greatest coach ever. Michael Jordan's the greatest player ever. Scottie Pippen's a top 50 player ever. Dennis Rodman, in my view, is the greatest rebounder ever. Steve Kerr is one of the greatest shooters ever. He leads NBA history in three-point percentage. You got the best European. You've got a number of great defensive players come off the bench in your starting lineup. Tony Kukoc is the guy I was referring to. That was a super team. You look at those Lakers teams. Now, you could say it wasn't necessarily a super team because it was just Shaq and Kobe and they had a bunch of really good role players. But this, again, the notion, and then you look at the Celtics, Paul Pierce, KG, Big Ticket, Rondo, Ray Allen. That was a super team. I mean, come on now. So, LeBron created the player-generated super team. And no, it did not ruin the league. By the way, Iman Shumpert, an argument could be made that maybe you don't even have a ring today if it's not for LeBron James in that decision to go back to Cleveland to join Kyrie, who was already there. And, of course, they made the trade Andrew Wiggins for Kevin Love. So my issue with this is why stay with a team and not win a ring? Maybe make a couple runs at the ring, like Charles Barkley, for example. Got to the finals, but and you run into MJ. Or you're Reggie Miller and you run into Shaq and Kobe. Listen, it's great that Reggie Miller, and I have nothing but respect for the great Reggie Miller, but it's great that he stayed a Pacer his whole career. Nothing wrong with that. But would anybody have had a problem? Maybe at the time we would have, but looking back, would we have had a problem if he went to, say, I know it was their hated rival, but the Pistons? So that's kind of my thing is, You're giving players a decision now to take control of their own careers. Why leave it up to some crusty owner? You get drafted into a cruddy organization, like which LeBron did in Cleveland. Yes, you win a little bit, but you're never really quite in the contention for a championship like a Boston or even in Orlando in 2009. He had to leave. He didn't have a choice. We don't look at LeBron as arguably the greatest player of all time if he doesn't leave Cleveland. Kevin Durant may still not be a champion today if he doesn't go to Golden State. Literally. Maybe he is. Maybe he wins one with Russ. I doubt it, but maybe he does. But Kevin Durant possibly could not be a champ, might not be a champion if he doesn't go to Golden State. Anthony Davis, I'm about to talk about him with my next guest a little later, but Anthony Davis, what is he without LeBron and going to the LA Lakers, forcing his way out of a bad organization, which New Orleans has shown themselves to be? Talented, puts up good numbers, but he's got no rings, got no signature playoff performances. I mean, say what you want about AD now, but he was outstanding in those 2020 playoffs. That doesn't happen without LeBron and the Lakers. So the notion that super teams are like just bad for the league or LeBron ruined the league, come on now. Everybody should have the right to take control of their own careers, go to better opportunities. This should be no different for NBA players. Matter of fact, we're starting to see in the NFL a little bit. Tom Brady left New England. Matt Stafford forced his way out of Detroit. Aaron Rodgers may force his way out of Green Bay, although I don't know if that'd be the greatest decision ever, but he just might. But we'll see. So I love you, Iman, but I disagree. All right, moving on. We got a very special guest joining the show. He is the host of the All Even podcast. Let's skip the pleasantries. It's Barry Grant Jr. joining up live. How you doing, my man?
What's up, Bryson? What's up, man? Am I coming in good on the headsets, man? Am I all right?
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear, man.
All right, cool.
So just let me piggyback off this. What's kind of your thoughts on Iman Shumpert's opinion on LeBron James, who ruined the league, and that kind of notion that seemed to be going around for the last decade? What's your thoughts on it?
You see my smile, right, Bryson?
Yes, I do.
So let me say this. Envy and jealousy is a real thing. And when you're the best, people are going to be very envious and very jealous of your position and how much power you wield. The thing is with LeBron James is that, like you said, super teams have been since the dawn of basketball. They've been there. The Mikan-led Lakers were a super team. The Boston Celtics were a super team. The super teams of the 80s. The Bulls were a super team. You keep going. The Celtics reformed in 2008 were a super team. So it's the notion of it's okay for the old guard to do it their way. But LeBron James, when he comes in and threatens your establishment of how the old way does it, of course people are going to feel threatened. Of course people are not going to like it. Of course they're going to need somebody to blame. LeBron James is always going to be the guy to blame. LeBron James, just like you said, put the power in control of the players, not the organizations, the players. Now, the problem is that not every player deserves that level of power. That's the problem in the NBA. For every LeBron James that does it, I say the right way in regards to he doesn't demand trades and force your team to be in an uncomfortable situation. He leaves via free agency when he has the right to. He doesn't try to, okay, well, I'm not going to show up to training camp. Okay, well, I'm going to make it very uncomfortable for you. That's not the right way to do things. So for every great blueprint that you have, you're going to have people that rig the system. LeBron James is that. LeBron James is the threat to the normalcy of how things were in the NBA. That's why a lot of executives, you always see anonymous executives taking shots at LeBron. You always see certain players taking shots at LeBron. Why? Because of the power that he wields. They understand that. And if they can be able to take him down a peg and criticize him if he's not playing well, if his teams are starting to play bad, they are the first ones to be anonymous and say something about LeBron James. That's just the way it is. Power breeds envy and jealousy. And Iman Shumpert, out of the lot of them, I'm sure his opinion is shared by a lot of people. But the problem with him is that he's the wrong messenger.
I mean, he won a championship with LeBron. Like I said, he's a beneficiary.
He's a beneficiary of a super team. He's a beneficiary of getting a contract after winning a championship.
Bingo.
So can you? So like I said, Iman Shumpert is out of the NBA, not playing right now. Maybe, just maybe, it's a little bit jealous, a little bit envious of the situation that LeBron's playing. LeBron is turning 37 years old and still ticking. Iman Shumpert is no longer in the NBA.
And it goes, I call it the yeah, but club. The Patrick Ewings, the Charles Barkleys, the Reggie Millers, great all-time players, top 25, 30 players. Yeah, but a championship, totally, it changes how we look at you as an athlete, as a player. That's why, LeBron said what he said after that first championship in Miami. It's like we look at certain guys differently once they are able to put that ring on their finger. As we have a few good comments, Kevin C says that Lakers championship doesn't happen if they're not in the bubble. Look, these days, you could argue that with Anthony Davis's health. Again, we're going to get into the Lakers a little later. And he also said the problem with LeBron James is not the free agency. It's the fact the whole show he puts on before he made his decision. Listen, I know Cleveland fans had an issue with the whole ESPN special. My thing was, look, at least he's not coming out like, Kevin Durant just came out of nowhere. I'm going to Golden State. Like LeBron kind of, he even said before he made a decision, I mean, this is tough. I'm taking my talents to South Beach. I think Cleveland fans were not going to like it any other way.
Right.
So, how is LeBron supposed to do that? He was kind of in a tough position.
I mean, and to piggyback off of what you said too, Bryson, I mean, the kid was 25 years old. Like,
that's hard to believe.
25 years old, making the biggest decision of his career. And what gets lost in that whole thing is the fact that he actually donated. It was all the money went to the Boys and Girls Club. Like, nobody talks about that, but they just talk about the decision. This is why narratives about certain people I don't follow, because they never tell the full story. They always want to just give you the part that look, he ruined the NBA. Really? Did he really ruin the NBA, or did he actually put more money into the player's pocket? I'm just saying. If it wasn't for LeBron James, we wouldn't have super max contracts. Honestly, if it wasn't for LeBron James, we wouldn't have players signing 3-year contracts after their rookie deals to actually control their free agency, future. The guys were signing 5- and 6-year deals after their rookie deals. So how long were they staying on their NBA careers? Or the teams that drafted them 10 years before they can make a decision on where to go, and then the team can be able to say, oh, well, your production is slipping. Let's go ahead and just trade you off somewhere else. Just, it's just going back to even, I don't want to kind of veer off, but, if they want to balance the control in the NBA, these teams need to be more responsible. Stop giving players no trade clauses. Players that don't deserve no trade clauses. Stop giving it to them. For every LeBron James that you have, you can give a no trade clause to. Don't give it to a James Harden. Don't give it to a Russell Westbrook. Don't give it to this particular player, because not everybody deserves that type of level of cachet. That's all it is. So,
No, I feel you. You make a great point about the Boys and Girls Club. If you go back and watch that video, there's a bunch of kids sitting in the background behind LeBron James and Jim Gray. So there you go.
Look how much they I think they probably gross like $1 million plus, if that. But nobody talks about that, right? They just talk about the kid that looks very uncomfortable in that chair next to Jim Gray because he understood the gravity of what he was doing. 25 years old. I would love for somebody to criticize me of the things that I did when I was 25 years old right now.
Well, I mean, anybody. If we're being honest with ourselves, you're putting the spotlight, and this is, LeBron deserves a ton of credit for this. You're 16 years old on the cover of Sports Illustrated. You are literally called the chosen one. You are supposed to be the successor to Michael Jordan, essentially, and he exceeds the expectations. He builds a school. We all know about his charitable efforts, and we
never hear about those things, though. We never hear about those things. No.
Bingo. Ryan says, I'm mad because he's ruining my Lakers. Shout out to Ryan, Clutch Sports Talk.
He actually isn't.
We'll get into that. He says it's not all his fault. The bus kids are to blame too.
I wouldn't even say that. I think Genie's doing a great job. There's
Well,
there's other reasons why the Lakers are looking the way they are right now.
let's take a little detour. Let's take a little detour. Your thoughts on the Lakers? They've lost 3 straight. They're 16-16. They're 532 games in.
Yeah.
AD's out for four weeks. AD, as I always call him, always down. He's down once again. Chuck called him street clothes.
Yes.
Russell Westbrook, once again, we're watching these games. He's playing out of control. I thought LeBron was excellent against Phoenix. He just didn't have the horses with him. I feel like I've asked this question to you and a lot of Lakers fans a million times, but where do they go from here?
They can go where they're going now. They're a average team. They're going to possibly be a play-in team or be out of the playoffs. Or if something miraculous happens where they end up getting on a nice win streak in the second half of the season or in the new year, I mean, they can go a lot of ways. They can go down, they can go marginally upward, or they can just stay where they're at and be 500 for the rest of the season. There's a lot of problems here. It's not just one thing. It's not the fact that Anthony Davis has been Mr. Frail for the last 2 seasons. It's not the fact that you made the wrong trade for Russell Westbrook. It's not the fact that maybe the coach is not the coach that you actually need for this particular group. It's not the fact that, your bench is not really that consistent. It's not the fact that DeAndre Jordan shouldn't be on your roster. It's everything. It's all of it. We're seeing the fact that my man Caruso, he would be on this team had it not been for a decision of luxury tax. If you're talking about a team that is a championship contender, when Jerry Buss, rest his soul, was running this team, he didn't care about luxury tax. It was win now at all costs. It doesn't matter what it costs. Let's win the championship. You can't start penny pinching now when you have an aging roster and you have an aging superstar that doesn't really have that much time left at his peak. So who cares about a luxury tax? Caruso would have helped this team. DeRozan would have helped this team.
Kyle Kuzma. I can say Kyle Kuzma could have helped this team with the, Buddy Hield would have helped this team. Oh, yeah.
But you decide to go the Russell Westbrook route. And, to Ryan's defense in regards to what he was saying about LeBron ruining the team, I'm not going to say he's ruined the team, but there's a lot of times where you have to take the decision-making out of your superstars' hands at times. It's a lot of times where your great players, they know the game. They know the game so well, but they're poor evaluators of talent. Jordan was like that. Jerry Krause had to turn down so many bad deals that Jordan wanted to make for the Bulls back in those championship runs. A lot of Carolina guys he wanted on that team that were terrible. Jerry Krause said, "No, I'm not doing that. That's not going to help this team win." That's what you have to do in regards to if you're a Rob Pelinka, whatever GM or president is in charge with a superstar. You can collab with them, and you can also say to them, I will take this under advisement, but I don't think that this is the right move to make for this particular team. If we want to optimize and be the best that we can be this season, this is not the trade for us. And if your superstar is trusting of the management, then the superstar will say, okay, I trust you. Let's go forward. But the fact that they put their reputations on the line for Russell Westbrook, and everybody with 2 eyes knew that it wouldn't work, except LeBron James, how could you not say that he doesn't have a big part in how the Lakers are looking right now? So,
well, I agree. All the way I agree with you on LeBron as far as his decision making. It's taken Jordan almost, a decade and a half just to put together some semblance of a pretty good young roster, obviously led by LaMelo Ball.
Right.
But it's kind of a thing like I talked about with LeBron earlier in the show, and this is where I'll defend him and I'll defend any NBA player who's in free agency.
Right.
No offense, but screw loyalty.
Right.
You got to do what's best for you.
Of course.
And so I got no problem with LeBron going to Miami, going back to Cleveland, going to the Lakers.
Yep.
But my thing is, like you mentioned, Rob Pelinka is the general manager. He should ask for LeBron's input on certain things. He's LeBron James.
Correct.
Of course. But, I was thinking about this today, thinking about my Warriors. And I remember reading a story. I think this is days before the NBA season starts. And, they're making roster cuts. And a report comes out that Steph and Draymond are kind of pissed off with Bob Myers for letting go of Avery Bradley in favor of Gary Payton.
Right.
Well, Gary Payton's been a huge contributor to that Golden State bench. And so that's the thing. Ask for their input. Absolutely.
But you are the final decision maker at the end of the day.
Bingo. I totally agree with you there.
Yeah.
A few comments here. Ryan says Barry's love for Braun is equal to my love for Dak. I think we could all
it's higher. It's higher.
Is it though?
It's higher.
It may be higher than Ryan's. I don't think it's higher than mine.
I will fight people for LeBron James.
I can tell. Kevin C. Oh boy, he says, is he closer to Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson? Okay, I'll say this. It depends on what you're talking about.
Yeah, listen, we can't compare games. This is the problem that a lot of people have with LeBron James and the greatest of all time. You can't compare them. They're different players. They do nothing alike. Nothing. If you're going to compare somebody, you're going to compare Kobe and Jordan because their games are very similar. Yeah. Magic and LeBron are very similar, but LeBron is better than Magic.
Right.
Everybody knows that. It's just physically, I guess IQ-wise, they're about the same. But, LeBron is just a better player. So nobody's going to dispute that. But when you talk about Michael Jordan and LeBron, they're just different players, but their impact on the game is pretty similar in regards to how they dominated. They dominated in different ways, obviously, but they still dominated their era of basketball. When you talk about who was the greatest and who changed how certain things worked in the NBA, Jordan, LeBron, you can't say that about Kobe. Kobe came at a time where he did his thing, but did he really change the NBA? No, he didn't. LeBron changed the NBA. Jordan changed the NBA. That's why they're always going to be in that conversation of greatest of all time. But I never compare them in regards to stat-wise. It's completely different. LeBron James is going to dwarf Jordan's numbers in pretty much virtually everything.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about greatness, you can just statistically, LeBron's going to be greater. But people are always going to say that Jordan's better. Okay, then that's fine. Like, you know what I mean? It is what it is.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If you're comparing as far as games, yeah, LeBron is closer to Magic Johnson than he is Michael Jordan. Their games aren't overly similar. Now, LeBron's developed somewhat of a fadeaway,
right?
A little similar to MJ's, but that's about it. He's a better passer. MJ's the better overall scorer. We get the whole thing. But as far as greatness, I mean, honestly, I put Kareem over Magic.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you'll agree with this or not. As a Lakers fan, I'm curious. I give Kobe a slight edge over Magic Johnson. He's got the same amount of rings, so he should have more MVPs as far as I'm concerned.
That one's tough, Bryson. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Because I'm a huge Kobe fan. Everybody who knows me knows that. And but I grew up a Magic Johnson fan, so it's hard. I can see the argument. I can see it either way, but I still lean more Magic just of what he did for those Lakers late 70s, 80s, and that run that they had in the 80s was just it was unheard of.
It was stupid. I mean, what they were doing. Yeah. But I mean, listen, here's my argument though. And listen, I get why you say Magic Johnson. My thing is this: Magic never won a ring without Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
It's fair.
Kobe won 2 without Shaq. That's kind of my thing. That's where and listen, I see your argument. I see Lakers fans' argument to that as well. And Ryan says, this is kind of what we were talking about. He says, we all know the shadow LeBron cast over any organization is real. LeBron is the de facto GM. That's fair. I mean, you did see, and I was talking about this with Ryan the other day. Some of those contracts that he was getting, some of those Cavs players were out. I mean, they were crazy.
Right.
He was getting, JR was overpaid, Tristan Thompson, like you mentioned, Iman Shumpert. I think Timothy Miles got paid later on by the Lakers. But when you look at some of those deals, but that some of those Cleveland players were getting, it's like, dude, LeBron, this is, I don't know about this.
But here's the thing, though. Like we were saying, if you know that you're good at your job and you are the decision maker, you make the final say. You can say, LeBron James, we can be able to negotiate with these guys, but certain numbers are going to be too high. We don't want to put ourselves in cap hell. So we are going to make the decision. We are going to say yes or no and move forward. If you're going to leave, you're going to leave regardless. We have to do what's best for the team and to keep this team afloat and to make them competitive. So as great as, yes, he does cast a huge shadow over any organization that he's a part of. But at the end of the day, you have to be the guy to tell him no. And if he respects you enough, he will listen. That's the problem, is that the people that have been in those positions really don't have his respect that much. And if they don't have his particular respect that much, that means the owner is going to be able to lean more to the star player's opinion rather than his GM. If the owner says, hey, listen, this is my guy, this is my GM, you guys have to work together, he's not going anywhere, just like how you are not going anywhere. So if you guys don't, come to an agreement or a compromise, tie goes to the runner anyway, and that's the GM. So, that's the way it has to be.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think, listen, each guy in the organization has a role to play.
Right.
And so, you're going to give LeBron and other great players more input than you would a bench guy, of course.
Absolutely.
But that just kind of goes. Ryan agrees with me. He says Mamba all day. Kobe was relentless. Again, this is a debate we could have for an hour and a half if we just dissect the two's careers. But and Kevin C says, please no Cowboy talk. We're getting the Cowboys.
Oh, we're getting there. He's a miserable Giants fan, so it's kind of sad, but
Oh gosh, yeah, I can't imagine being a Giants fan these days or a Jets fan. All right, so let's transition to the NFL, but not to the Cowboys for a second.
Yes.
Let's talk about another Russell Wilson. Seattle right now is kind of a train wreck. They're 5-9. Their season is a wrap. I thought it was a wrap a few weeks ago when they lost to Washington. Russ is on pace to have the worst year of his career as far as passer rating is concerned since 2017. And that year he had the worst offensive line statistically in the league that year. And I believe he's on pace for the second fewest passing touchdowns since 2014.
Right.
So, and he did miss a few games, but still it's not working right now whatsoever in Seattle. Do you think Russell stays? Do you think he leaves? And if he stays, I've made the argument, I think you need to let go of Pete Carroll. It's run its course. You need to get a younger guy, a guy who's more up to date in the 2021 and now 2022 NFL. What's kind of your thoughts on the Seahawks and where do they go from here in regards to their starting quarterback?
I think it's time for them to make the decision for Russ. I think as the organization, they need to realize that, yes, like you were saying, it's run its course. I don't know if Pete Carroll has to necessarily step down. If they want to make that decision, that's fine. They're going to need a complete overhaul. So if they have to do a complete assessment and evaluation of every particular position, every staff member in the organization right now, because what they've been doing over the last 4 seasons has not been working. So, it's time to kind of press the reset button. So honestly, I would trade Russell even if Russell doesn't want to be traded. I think it's time for them to kind of press the reset button and force him to just, get other options elsewhere. If he wants to go somewhere else, tell him, listen, hey, Russ, we're definitely going to trade you this offseason. Let us know where you want to go. And, we'll try to work that out. But it's time for the split. I've never vehemently seen a quarterback pout on the field as much as I do Russell Wilson. It's time for that to change. That's not great leadership. The last quarterback that I saw that did that was Deshaun Watson, but he's a young kid. You can expect that from him. But for a veteran like Russell Wilson to do it, that's not the message that you want to send. You want to continue to be professional. You want to continue to play at a high level, no excuses. And when the offseason comes, you go ahead and sit with management and you decide what your future is going to be going forward. But, the way he's playing, he's kind of making himself the bad guy in my eyes. And it's like, you're great. Be great. Don't do this. You know what I mean? Like, don't pout. Don't do this. Don't vehemently look like you're not interested to play quarterback in the NFL, because it's such a hard position to get. It's such a hard position to keep. And he's one of the elite quarterbacks in the league, in the history of this league. He has to continue to show that professionalism and not do what he's doing.
Yeah, it's fair. And I've heard some people say, well, is he still hurt? I haven't seen anything that's made me think, oh, Russ looks limited. Like I said, I think his heart's not in Seattle
Yeah,
anymore. Like you said, I think it's run its course. And I've said for a month, if you want to keep Russ, if you want to reboot the roster, you're gonna have to basically sell Russ like, hey, we're probably not gonna be a championship contender for the next few
right.
years. And that's why I think Russ is gonna say,
And
okay,
he's
then
not. Yeah, he doesn't want that. He's not going to want
yes.
that.
He's 30, whatever he is, 32, 33 years old. He's in the prime of his career. He wants to go chase some more Lombardis. And so I think it'll be better for both sides if they just go ahead and split. Now back to the NBA for just a second. COVID's running rampant now around the country, around the world. That's the case, and so the NBA is no different. Christmas Day's in trouble, Barry, as far as the games, because you got three teams. I count them three teams that have major COVID problems. You got the Hawks, who've had a number of cases the last 48 hours. The Nets, although James Harden and Paul Millsap did just come off the list today, and the Dallas Mavericks have had guys go on the list, I think, including Luka. And so that's at least 3 games that are in some serious jeopardy. Not to mention my Warriors have 3 guys in protocols. So where do you think the NBA goes? As far as Adam Silver kind of detailed his plan the other day on what he wants to do if these cases continue to rise. It's a tough situation, but what do you think the NBA does and how they handle this whole situation?
I mean, I think they just got to stay the course. Honestly, they've decided to put in these extended rules and these COVID signings and stuff like that. So you just have to continue to do that and weather the storm, because canceling the games obviously is not something that they want to do. Postponing the games is not something that they want to do. So if they can continue to be able to fill out rosters and make sure everybody stays healthy, and you can have games play, if maybe you're not going to have your top superstars on some teams, or top stars or contributors, but as long as you can have competitive basketball on Christmas where people are still dialing in and watching, that's what you're looking for. So I think they just really have to weather the storm and stay the course.
Yeah, I mean what makes it even harder is now, and I think the NFL kind of caught on to something. We already are going to get better ratings than the NBA because the NFL is just a more popular league.
Right.
Now the NFL's kind of caught on to, oh, hold on, Christmas Day might be kind of something we could use to our advantage to beat the NBA in this way. And so you got 2 big NFL games with playoff implications on Saturday.
Right.
And so the NBA is like, dang, we can't be postponing all of these games. I mean, we can't
lose. They're forced to they can't help it, man. They have to do it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at this point.
I mean, it's crazy how the NFL is just anyway, the NBA, I mean, nowadays you got the NFL draft, which is beating NBA playoff ratings when it happens. You got, free agency and things of that nature.
The NFL is the bully on the block. They're like the guy that gives the kid the swirly in the bathroom. Like that's who they are, man. It's just like, why are you picking on the NBA? Just leave them alone. Just give them Christmas. They don't try to harass and corrupt your Sundays. They don't do that. Just give them their Christmas games and leave them alone, man.
I mean, here's what I want. I listen, you got the other games, you got Milwaukee. I just want 2 games. I want Warriors, Suns, and Nets, Lakers. That's all I want.
That's all we want, man. That's all we've wanted since the season has started. Yeah, all the other games just don't matter. Let's just get those games in, and everything else can kind of fall into place and be all right. Just keep these guys in bubble wrap. Tell them that they can't go home. Keep them in a hotel room. For the next 10 days, bring him room service. Just lock him somewhere.
Lock him in the Clippers basement.
Yeah, just lock him. Exactly, lock him in the crypto basement. Lock him in the basement. So it's just they got to find a way to make sure that these games go on. But they're doing the best that they can, and I always commend and congratulate the NBA for that, because they really try to do it right. They don't try to violate stuff and look silly and foolish. They really try to do the best they can by their players in regards to, health and safety.
Well, look, Adam Silver, I think, is without a doubt the best commissioner in sports.
Yeah.
And when you look at, when I saw that hockey postponed their season and almost immediately after the NBA announces this plan for replacement players,
right?
I'm like, boy, hockey, y'all might have messed up on this one.
Right.
And so like you said, that the show kind of has to go on. Let's see. Cowboys Cam fan, he says, only NBA on Christmas. Barry, don't be a Grinch. Give me my NFL.
That's all you care about is your NFL. All right, now I need my basketball on Christmas and nothing else. Don't try to disrupt my schedule. I'm used to that. You know what I mean?
I'm with you. I'm with you. Kevin Season, Russell Wilson should ask for a trade of the Giants. Yeah, why would he do that?
Why would he do that, right?
Why? See, they got the same problems Seattle's got. They got
Right.
trouble with their general manager. They don't know if the coach is right. Offensive line's bad.
Listen, from the frying pan into the fire, right? That's basically what it is. So why would he do that? No, that's not happening, Kev. But thank you.
I don't know where he goes, honestly, because the teams that need quarterbacks are, I mean, outside of Cleveland, maybe are in some dicey situations. Denver, yeah, that could work. That's your Aaron Rodgers has hinted at. Pittsburgh could be a destination.
I think Pittsburgh would be a great destination. Honestly, great organization, great coach. They have good weapons over there. So
they got the defense,
and they got the defense. So
I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the NFC, it's funny. Outside of the wild card team, the first wild card team, which is currently the Rams, I think they're going to jump Arizona for the division. The way Arizona's playing,
I agree.
The way the Rams are playing. Outside of that, I think the standings kind of reflect the way I look at these teams. Green Bay's the best team in the NFC.
Yeah.
Today, I think Dallas is better than Tampa because Levante
David. Hot take, man.
I don't even think it's a hot take. Levante David done for the year. Chris Godwin done for the year. Leonard Fournette done for the year. Mike Evans is dealing with a hamstring issue.
Right.
And listen. I don't bet against Brady. I learned that mistake, or I made that mistake 5 years ago against Atlanta, and I've never made it stick since. But man,
it's tough. It's tough.
What's your thoughts on the Cowboys and not necessarily just the offensive struggles as of late and how the defense has played? I think some of that has to do with the fact they played some pretty sorry quarterbacks in these last 3 games.
Correct.
But where do you rank Dallas in the NFC among the Packers and the Cardinals and the defending champs and the Rams?
Honestly, I think I have them 3. I still think Tampa's a bit better just because of the Brady factor. And, but it's close. It's getting closer. Packers are head and shoulders the best team in the NFC. Head and shoulders the best team in the NFC. So, you're always going to have them 1. But listen, the Cowboys got to take care of business. They have to beat the Washington football team. If they go ahead and do that, and they do it in decisive fashion, then they're going to prove a lot to me. If they lose this game against Washington, then there's a lot of uncertainty because it's like this is a game that you're supposed to win and you're supposed to start you need to start tightening the screws in regards to postseason right now. And that's what they have to do. If they stumble against Washington here, there's a lot of question marks that I don't know we're going to ever get the answers to in Dallas.
Well, let me take you off the screen for just a second because I want to give a message. I can still hear you, but I want to just put this message out there. Dak Prescott, you're my man. I wear your hat 85, 90% of the shows on here. And Barry brings up a good point about how we need to beat Washington. Dak, 2 weeks ago, you were bad. No, you were trash against Washington. Horrible. You got to show up on Sunday night. If you're the franchise quarterback, you got to show up on Sunday night, right those wrongs, forget that first game against Washington ever happened, win this division, do it decisively. Again, you're favored by 11 points at home. Take care of business. This is a 6-8 football team. They're going nowhere fast. You don't need to win this game. You got to dominate this game. All right, Barry, what's up? I just had to get that message.
I like that PSA. That was good.
I had to do it because look, listen, Dak's my guy. He's mine and Ryan's guy. Well, he's your guy. I understand that.
Now, listen, I like Dak. It's just that I believe that he is who he is, and that's fine. If the organization, if everybody realizes that he's a quarterback with faults, and we're able to build a team around him that can be able to cover and mask those faults, then that's fine. This team can go far, but it's the mistakes for me, Bryson. The mistakes he makes are just it's every week. He makes the same.
Well, I would say he made those on Sunday against the Giants. My thing, the fumble, I think that was more in CD. He missed Lorenzo Carter. I mean, it wasn't even close, and he's got a clean shot at Dak's blind side.
It's the overthrows. It's the overthrows that bother me.
Yeah, and I said this about Dak on Monday's show. Dak probably during that game, he's like, "Look, Mike Glenn is starting for the Giants. They're they're in their train wreck right now. I'm not going to let them back in the game like I did Washington. We're going to run the football, which they did very effectively.
Yes,
they
they
ran
did.
for 125 yards. We're going to kind of throw it short. Now, I do want to see some more deep balls these next 3 weeks, especially against Arizona and what's going to be the biggest game of the year a couple weeks from now. But that's kind of the thing. It's the lack of taking shots down the field to keep the defense honest that I think makes the Cowboys that much easier to game plan for offensively.
Absolutely.
Specifically the quarterback and the run game for that matter.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where I'm at. Let's see. We got a comment here. Cowboys Camp Fan Podcast. He says, cannot lose to Washington. Got to lay down a whooping. Need to see Dak ball out, get some confidence going into the playoffs.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with you. That's what needs to happen. And also, too, I don't know if you're going to agree with me, Bryson, but who does Dak remind you of? Like, who does Dak and the Dallas Cowboys remind you of? Quarterback that's not perfect. He makes some poor decisions, but he does make some clutch plays when you need him to. I'll give you a hint.
Please. I need a hint.
He's won 2 Super Bowls.
Oh, Eli.
Bingo. Dak Prescott is more Eli Manning than he is Tom Brady. That is and the thing, the Giants realize that as good as Eli is, he's not Peyton. So they have to make sure that they put things around him, a great defense, a dominating defense, to make sure that they are able to control football games. Dallas can do the same thing with Dak. So, they might be on the cusp of having one of those defenses that can really, really dictate and control a football game to the point where all you're asking Dak to do is just not turn the ball over, run the ball, and make some key third down throws. So we'll see, man. We'll see if that can be able to kind of, work itself out and come to fruition.
The only thing, though, is I don't know if the Cowboys are good enough for Dak to play a game manager type role.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And plus, you've got those receivers. I'm not saying you got to overuse them and force it to them. That's just going to lead to big problems.
All right.
But I don't think it's just going to have to be third down throws or a 2-minute offense at the end of the half or at the fourth quarter or in overtime possibly. I think he's going to need, say you got a 2nd and 12, you're backed up. You need 3 points in this drive. Okay. Yeah. You need just keep yourself in and keep some momentum. I think Dak is good enough to keep them in those spots and keep them in games. And that's the thing. If he keeps you in it, I feel good about our chances. But it's when he lets some of those throws get away from him. Maybe turns the ball over a little bit. Mike McCarthy's horrible clock management. Did you see the end of the half, Barry? Even Dak is like, what are we doing?
He's clueless. He just stands there, and I really just don't know if he realizes what's going on. He may be thinking about how much time is left. Oh, so it's 2 minutes. It's just.
I'll never forgive Mike for the Chargers game.
Oh my goodness!
Thank God Zerline bailed us out.
Yes.
Because you had 30 seconds. You let the clock run all the way down to 3, and you've got a timeout in your back pocket.
It's bonehead decisions from top to bottom. The play calling is a little too cute for me. I don't like that. The decision making by the head coach in regard. That's what I'm saying. Kellen Moore, top to bottom, our stat, everything has to improve. These next few games, everything has to tighten up. Everything has to get better. Quarterback play, offensive line play, defensive line. Our cornerbacks, we don't need to be taking risks. We need to just cover guys and not give up the big play. Play calling needs to be sharper, and McCarthy needs to be sharper. So everything has to kind of tighten up, and we'll see what happens, man. But this is a big game. This is a huge, huge game for Dallas. People don't realize how big this game is. They just look at massive. 10-4. They look at, they can be able to control the move up in the conference. This is a huge game for Dallas, because if they fall flat, man, exactly. We're going to learn a lot about this team, because when you have something in your control and you're the front runner or you're the favorite, that's easier. That's harder than being the underdog, right? When there's nothing, there's nothing to, you're just playing and everybody's against you. When you're supposed to win, when you're supposed to dominate, when you're supposed to perform, that's when the pressure is on. So I
Yes.
want to see how they perform, man. It's all, like you said, it's all up here. It's going to be all mental, and I want to see how they handle that.
And there are so many instances, and gosh, man, I hate to relive this again, but uh, 2016 finals, Cleveland had nothing to lose. I mean, you could say maybe LeBron did because of the whole promise and everything, but once you got to game 7, it's like, crap, we were down 3-1, and
All bets are off. Exactly.
You see Steph Curry get a little antsy, Clay,
Mhm.
Draymond was great outside of that.
Yeah.
I heard Mark Schlereth, the former Broncos offensive lineman, won those Super Bowls with Elway in the 90s. I heard him talk about it. He played a Super Bowl. I think they were underdogs against Washington one year in a Super Bowl. I can't remember. It might have been one of those against Buffalo. And they were huge underdogs, and they won the game, and it was jubilation, it was joy, it was I can't believe we pulled this off.
Right.
And they were huge favorites against Atlanta that last Super Bowl Elway won. And after that game over, he said, we didn't feel joy, we felt relief.
Right.
Okay, that's over. 60 minutes, we're holding the trophy, nothing to worry about. Like you said, it's a whole different animal when you're expected to win. It's different. It's why we talk about it's cliche, but it's true. Being the hunter or the hunted. That's why teams haven't gone back-to-back in the NFL since 2005.
Absolutely.
Got quite a few comments. Mike Picasso says, carving up, get Dak out of here. Barry loves Dak. Don't let him fool you. What do you got to say about that?
It's a complete accusation. I'm not going to say that I love Dak. I don't hate him, but I'm not. I'm a little bit more objective about Dak than some of my counterparts. Bryson.
Really? I see. I told you he played like trash 2 weeks ago. Is that not good enough?
Listen, you get a pass, but you know who doesn't get a pass? That's Ryan Flowers. He doesn't get a pass with me. Doesn't get a pass. Okay. He sees no wrong with Dak Prescott. He's always going to blame somebody else for why Dak doesn't perform. So yes, you get a pass, but not Ryan. Not Ryan.
I'll give you that. He said, I know he loves that Prescott. Barry loves that man. He loves that team. It's sickening. He says the Cowboy talk is making him sick. Mike, is it Mick? Mike. Okay, Mike Picasso. He says, "Hey, watch the Eli slander." I don't think that was slander.
No, it wasn't slander. I was just saying that he's comparable to a 2-time Super Bowl champion. He's just a flawed quarterback. That's all. Yeah. Eli was a flawed quarterback. He's good, but flawed.
Well said. All right. Let's see. We got one more question here. Yeah, sure. Why not? So going into week 16, the NFL, I can't believe we're in week 16. The season's flown by.
Unbelievable.
Your favorite today is who? To win the whole thing.
You know what? Honestly, it is. I don't think I have one. I really don't think I have one. Like, for the first time this late in the season, I can't remember actually saying it's a crapshoot. Like, it all depends on who can get hot in the playoffs. Home, if it's home field, if you get the right matchups, it really, really depends. Because think about it. What if the Saints get into the playoffs and they go against the Bucks?
Hey, I'm telling you, Dennis Allen is Tom Brady's number.
That's all I'm saying. So it's like, we can say that, hey, the Bucks, they still got Brady. He's the guy, when it comes playoff time, he's going to be there. But it's such a crapshoot this season. Like, it's probably the most parity we've seen in the NFL in quite some time in regards to just not knowing who's going to be there. It reminds me of baseball a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, baseball, you have these teams that are good, but in the postseason with baseball, anything can happen. So that's what it feels like to me. I don't think that there's a clear-cut favorite. I think if you want to, gun to my head and say who is it going to be, I think you can lean towards the Green Bay Packers because they're so well-rounded. But are they going to be able to make the decisions when the time calls for it? Is Mr. Matt LeChoke going to make the right decisions and look at his quarterback and say, you take us home, instead of trying to micromanage one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play his game?
That's the two questions I have about the Packers. Is Matt LaFleur? I like the guy. I do. I think he's a very good coach. He's a good game planner.
Right.
But when push comes to shove, you don't know what you're going to get. And listen, fair or unfair, Aaron Rodgers has a losing record in the postseason since that Super Bowl. Some of those losses are not on him.
Isn't he like 1-3 or 1-4 in NFC Championship games?
1-4.
Yeah.
And the one win came against Caleb Haney.
There you go.
Come on. So that's kind of my thing is I called him James Harden. He's James Harden with the ring. insanely talented.
Right.
But man, you don't get that same guy in the postseason you do in the regular season, and I think that's more than a fair criticism. So okay, this is the last question, and I'll let you go. I promise. MVP discussion. There's now people talked about possibly. I think I read TJ Watt is getting up there in Vegas. He's having an unbelievable season. Jonathan Taylor has just been a
Beast.
monster.
He's a beast.
I loved him out of college, out of Wisconsin. But let's be honest, it's a quarterback award. It's going to come down to Brady or Rodgers.
Yeah.
And today, who do you believe the favorite to win MVP is?
I mean, after the Brady stinker, it's hard to say that he is the runaway favorite for the MVP, but I still think that he's still in the lead. I think Rodgers, Rodgers, how many games did he miss? Did Rodgers miss a game or two? Yeah, he missed one game. Okay, so, they've played well. He's played well. He always plays well in the regular season. So if you want to say Brady, Rodgers by a nose, you got Jonathan Taylor up there at 3. If you want to give TJ Watt some consideration as well, that's fine. But I think Brady and Rodgers are kind of like 51% to 49. Like that's how close it is to me in regards to those two. You know what I mean? So I still think Brady is the leader, especially if he can be able to gather himself with all of these injuries and go ahead and dominate the next few games and wrap up, that number 2 seed, or even possibly get to the number 1 if they can, then what can you say? What really can you say about not giving him the MVP award at that point? You know what I mean?
And the MVP, look, I guess I've just come to this realization. I've thrown it up there. The V word is almost irrelevant these days. Valuable.
Right.
Valuable, I think it's Brady. I mean, he went to a 7-9 team, added some pieces, and won a Super Bowl. But I think when you look, you got 2 guys that are in the contention for the number 1 seed, and the MVP, more than anything, it's about stories.
That's right.
And so both guys are good stories. You got one guy who might leave after the year's over. You got another guy who's 44 years old, playing probably better than he ever has, save for the New Orleans Saints. I don't know what happens with them throwing tablets all over the place. But I mean, that's kind of how it is. I give Brady the slight nod, simply for the fact that, and especially I think over the next 3 weeks, he's got a better chance than Aaron Rodgers has, at least a better opportunity to show he's the MVP.
Easier schedule.
It's an easier schedule, yes, but also the fact that, I mean, listen, the roster's kind of falling apart right now. You got Antonio Brown. What's he going to be when he comes back? Right. So there's more question marks, I think, with Tampa than there is with Green Bay.
I agree.
And so if Brady lives up to that, I don't know how you deny him the MVP.
But at the same time, what has the MVP turned into in every sport? It's the best player on the best team. So, it's not what it should be. I think the only sport truly that gets it right is baseball.
I agree with you. Yes.
Other sports, maybe hockey as well, but it's football and basketball. They tend to just kind of lean one way, and it really, they change the narrative yearly depending on what they want to change it to. And I remember.
You talking about narrative change. I remember when Russell Westbrook won the MVP in 2017, averages a triple-double next 2 years, and nobody even talks about it. It's
exactly. He doesn't even get a nod. He doesn't even get a notion. So that's the thing. It's like, okay, he averaged a triple-double. He was literally the most valuable player that year, because if you remove Russell from that team, they're a lottery team. They win 15 to 20 games. They made the playoffs. So, of course, he deserved the nod, but like we were talking about, they just changed the narrative yearly, and we are just here with our hands up like it doesn't really make sense, but it makes sense to them, so I guess.
I'm with you. John says Cubs having a great year, but I agree, quarterback win. Cubs going to win Offensive Player of the Year.
Yes, that hands down. That's his award. That's his award, but it's very hard for a wide receiver to win MVP in this league. Like, it's a dependent position.
Yep.
You literally have to do what Cup is doing to even get a consideration. Like, you have 150 receptions. You have to go over 2,000 yards receiving. You got to have 25 touchdowns. It's like some video game numbers for even people to say, I think that guy might be the MVP or a quarterback. Like, it's just the way it is. Even of a running back, it's so hard for a running back to win MVP because it's such a dependent position. You need to have the ball given to you. You have to have a great offensive line. Things have to go your way. You have to stay injury free. So, it's tough for those other positions to win. It's a quarterback award, just like the Cy Young, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with you. Last thing, I got my predictions for tonight's game. You got the 49ers and the Titans. I'm going to take San Francisco to win and cover the 3-point spread,
I like
24
that.
to 14.
I like
Excuse
that.
me. Derrick Henry's going to be out until probably the playoffs. And again, we don't know what he's going to look like when he does come back. San Francisco's on a roll right now. I'm starting to get shades of 2019, the way Jimmy G's playing.
Oh yeah.
The run game.
Running game is phenomenal.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Packers have the deepest offensive line in the league. I think the 49ers have the deepest running game in the league. You just plug any running back in there, and it doesn't matter. You can maybe argue the Ravens are in that group too. What's your thought on this prediction?
Yeah, I like it, man. I think it's solid. I think a 10-point win for the 49ers is fair. Ryan Tannehill, without a great running game, Ryan Tannehill is pretty much he's non-existent. He's not somebody that can be able to pass for 400 yards and win you a game. He needs things to be, perfect. The defense has to be playing right. I think Mike Vrabel is one of the best coaches in the NFL, but he really has a tough road ahead. I think they're still going to make the playoffs, obviously, but they may end up limping into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's kind of like last year. Pittsburgh was good.
Yeah.
Cleveland and Baltimore were better teams late in the season.
Exactly.
So, all right. So appreciate you coming on, Barry.
Of course, man.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Yes, sir. We'll talk.
All right. And with that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. Catch Carving Up tomorrow at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific time. Once again, at 6 p.m. noon Eastern, 9 Pacific time. Going to do some NFL predictions. Going to react to today's game. So have a great day, y'all. God bless. Peace out.